Hi guys, I hope you're all well and welcome to episode 119 of the Layton Fitness Podcast. Within this specific podcast we'll be discussing a very controversial topic, and that is clean eating preventing you from achieving your fat loss goals? So if you've been living under a rock, this term clean eating has been used a lot within the fitness industry within the last few years, and I'm about to tell you this is probably one of the big reasons why you're not achieving your fat loss goals. And one of the big reasons for that is it just completely ignores context. Most people would say that it's about avoiding processed foods and just consuming single ingredient whole foods, but this doesn't guarantee that you're actually going to create the energy deficit needed for fat loss. We need to put first things first. We need to actually be in a position where we're burning more calories than we're consuming, and therefore creating the energy deficit needed for fat loss. And I'm about to tell you that even if you're eating healthy foods or clean foods, if you're not in this energy deficit, you will not achieve your fat loss goals, and that's a fact. Additionally, you can even be in a point where you can actually be in an energy surplus just consuming these healthy foods, single ingredient whole foods, to the point where you would start gaining body fat. And that's why it's critical that you're actually taking note of the calories you're actually consuming. You're actually making sure you're in this energy deficit, as opposed to just judging foods in isolation. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see today more than ever, is just people judging a meal in isolation, saying, oh, that's a healthy food, I'm going to consume that, as opposed to actually looking at their day's intake and making sure that they're consuming calories to create an energy deficit needed for fat loss. They're not considering what they've eaten earlier in the day and whether they're going to go over their calorie intake by consuming this particular meal. And this shift will really make a tremendous difference, especially if you've been following a clean eating approach for some time. You may have seen some results at the beginning, which is probably just as a result of an energy deficit. The reason why is if you were eating some junk food previously, typically that's more calorically dense, and single ingredient whole food is less calories for the most part, and therefore you just created a deficit by default. However, maybe in a position now where your results are plateaued because you've seen that initial weight loss, and that basically means you need to continue creating that energy deficit. You need to continue reducing calories and or increasing energy expenditure from more cardio. Now keep in mind, I'm not bashing single ingredient whole foods, typically healthy foods, because this should make up the majority of your diet. This should make up at least 80% of your nutrition intake, so you don't have any micronutrient deficiencies. Typically these foods are higher in fiber, and that therefore means it keeps you fuller for longer, which is obviously important within the context of a fat loss phase for adherence. But you need to make sure you're actually not over consuming your calories. And the reason why this can be important is particularly for some of the healthier fats, things like oils, olive oil, coconut oil, avocados, nuts, things that are told are healthy, which they are, but you need to make sure that you're not over consuming these foods, because they're very calorically dense and it doesn't take much to wipe out the energy deficit needed for fat loss, especially if you're a lightweight female, for example, because your calories are typically lower. Just a handful of nuts, extra spoonful of peanut butter, something as small as this could easily be enough to wipe out the energy deficit needed for fat loss. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this topic is, in my opinion, this is the biggest reason that's holding people back in the fitness industry at the moment. They're focusing just solely on foods and meals in isolation, whether they're healthy or not, as opposed to looking at the bigger picture, which is, are they creating the energy deficit needed for fat loss? Are they consuming the correct calories within their day to create that deficit to actually make fat loss progress, as opposed to just thinking, I'm just going to eat healthy foods and just hope that I'll lose fat. We must be in that energy deficit. It's so critical. So hopefully that's been useful. Hopefully you can start applying this principle. If you're eating mainly single ingredient whole foods now, that's great, but making sure you're actually tracking these within your day's intake. And I have a free ebook on my website which I suggest you download immediately, and I basically teach you how to set up a nutrition plan, how to set protein, carbohydrate, fat and calorie figures suitable to you, suitable for your fat loss or muscle building goals. So once you have those figures, then you can start putting together foods and meals within your day to meet these daily totals. And the final point that's really important to notice, and I've mentioned this so many times before, is just realizing that fat loss plateaus are normal within any given fat loss phase, and that's really your cue to make a change to either calories, to either drop calories and or increase expenditure from more cardio to continue creating that deficit needed fat loss to bust through the plateau. So that's another important point. It's not just about having these nutrition targets in place, it's about measuring your progress, and then when you reach a plateau you need to make a change. So hopefully this has been a big eye opener. Don't just focus on healthy foods in isolation, focus on actually the day's intake, the most important factor, the daily calorie intake, the daily protein, carbohydrate and fat intake, or more specifically within the fat loss phase, it's the daily protein intake and the daily calorie target that are the most important factors. The carb to fat ratio does not matter within the context of a fat loss phase. So hopefully that's been useful. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. I look forward to speaking to you next week. And if you go to James Layton, Layton fitness.co.uk, so a tab at the top of the page called free ebook, and you can download the ebook to teach you how to set up a nutrition plan. Thank you very much. I'll speak to you next week. Take care.